Hi, in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at DWL, which is the Wayland version of DWM, the suckless window manager. If I switch across here, you can see I've got DWL running, and this is running on FreeBSD 14 on a Dell XPS 15 with an NVIDIA graphics card. What I'm going to do is take you through the steps of downloading this with Git and creating a separate Git branch for all your customizations, all your changes, all the patches you apply, so that you can then merge it back into the main branch. And this will allow you to keep your customizations separate and they won't be overwritten when you do a Git pull to update to the latest version of DWL. So, first of all, search for DWL. And you want the second link down here, DWL, DWM for Wayland. And this is going to take you to the GitHub page. But if you scroll down here, you'll notice that the project has been migrated to Codeberg. So what you want to do is come across to this link over here. And this is basically the Git repository that we're going to clone. So let's go through all of the steps. So first of all is the actual dependencies you need. So the dependencies for this are libinput, Wayland, dwl-roots, xkb common, Wayland protocols, and pkg-config. So what I'm going to be doing is actually building this on FreeBSD, and there's a couple of steps you need to do to get this working on FreeBSD. And a shout out to Charlie on the FreeBSD forum who actually gave me a few tips to get this working. Now there is a DWL package, DWL for FreeBSD, but you don't want to use this, and the reason is DWM and DWL, you customize them and sort of rebuild them. And typically a lot of the customizations go on in a config.h file. Now this package will allow you to set a environmental variable that points to a config.h file, so you can have customizations with this pre-built package. But the problem is that a lot of the customization for various patches occur in other files like dwl.c. And so what this basically means is if you use this package on FreeBSD, you'll be severely limited because you won't be able to apply the majority of patches and customizations. So we're not going to be using this. We're going to be building this from scratch. So let me just come down here and see where the packages are. So on FreeBSD, I needed to install these packages. As I said, on Linux, the package names will be different. So on FreeBSD, what we're going to do is run sudo pkg install evdev-proto, Wayland-protocols, gmake, pkg-conf, libxcb, libinput, Wayland, dwl-roots, libxkb common, xcb-util-wm. Now the other thing on FreeBSD is you need to actually enable seated one root. Okay, hang on a sec. There are seat, yeah. So on FreeBSD, what you need to do is actually enable seated down here. I need to update these files as well. So that's needed for Wayland. Right, so after you've installed the packages on FreeBSD or Linux, what we're going to do now is clone the repository. So, okay. So we're going to switch across to the terminal and run git clone codeberg.org dwl.git. Okay, so we're going to go inside the DWL folder. Can I do the I'm sure there's a, there we go. Let's just increase the terminal text size a bit so you can read it. So there we have the DWL Git repository. And you can see what we have here is a config.def.h file. And typically what you do is you copy this file to config.h and make your modifications there. But what we're going to do, and this is the step that most other tutorials on DWL or DWM miss, is creating a separate Git branch. So what we're going to do is run git branch, and you'll see we're on main. So what we want to do is actually create a Git branch for our customization. So we're going to create a special branch where all the customizations will be kept. Doesn't matter what the name is, just needs to be something different from master or main. GitHub have changed all of the default names from master to main because obviously master's, you know, offensive. And that's why I have a yes master prompt. No, it's not really. That's just like the genie thing, you know, yes master rubbing the lamp, that sort of thing. So what we're going to do here is run git checkout b patch. So what the -b option does is it creates the branch if it doesn't exist. We only need to run the -b option the first time, and after that we can just run git checkout main or git checkout patch. Okay, so git checkout patch, switch to a new branch patch. So if we now run git branch, spell it correctly, you'll see you've got two branches, main and patch, which is highlighted with the asterisk, so we know that we're now in the patch branch. You can call the branch whatever you want, but you know, I just thought patch made sense. Okay, so let's go through all the steps now, and I'll take you through I'll notify you when there are some steps that are FreeBSD specific, and what the alternate command would be on Linux. So first of all, what we need to do is copy the config.def.h file to config.h. Okay, so right, there we go. We've got config.h. Now, what I would recommend is after each of these steps that we're doing here is doing a git add and a git commit. So git add dot and then a git commit message, git commit -m, you know, message. Okay, so after each of these steps that I'm going through, it'd be a good idea to do a git commit after each of these, but to save time, I'm going to do all of the commits at the end because otherwise it'd be really boring for you watching me doing multiple git commits. So, right, we've copied the config.h. So basically what I was saying is after you've done that, you would do a git add dot git commit copy config.def.h to config.h. Right. We then can actually, you know, make changes to that if we want. But what we need to do, and this is FreeBSD specific, is we actually need to edit the make file with sed to change one of the variables so that it will actually build on FreeBSD. This is only for FreeBSD. On Linux, you would just run the make command when you're actually sort of making stuff. So you don't need to edit the make file on Linux. So if I just come across to the desktop DWL, and I'm just going to open the make file here, and this is the line we're actually going to be changing for FreeBSD. We're going to be using sed to change this from POSIX C source equals 200809L to _xopen _ source equals 700. Okay, so this is the original version here, and what we're going to do is run sed and change that make file. Okay, so now if I open the make file, you'll see that it has been changed. So that's just for freebsd. Okay, so after we've done that, we'd make the changes. So now what we're going to be doing is going through some important things. There are some important changes you need to make, and one of them isn't actually documented, and that is the scroll speed. So by default, the scroll speed in your terminal and your text editor will be really, really slow, and it will be unusable. And there's a change you need to make that I'm going to show. Now, I'm not going to be showing you how to rice this, putting pretty colors, clocks, icons up here. I'm going to be showing you how to get this functional, how to do the important things, okay? Putting different colors and stuff on that, okay, that's nice, but you need to get your keyboard set up. Yeah, you need to change your keyboard shortcuts. You need to have keyboard shortcuts to open the launcher or your terminal or your text editor. So those are the things that I'm going to be going through, is actually how to get the thing working, as opposed to doing little pretty colors and stuff. So the first important thing is the keyboard setup. Okay, so in the config.h, okay, we've got config.h and we're in the patch branch. So come across here. So what we need to do is set up our keyboard. So what we're going to do is search for XKB rule names. So XKB, and let me just make this a bit bigger for you. So what you'll see here is this is the section where you define your keyboard and you set the rules, the model, the layout, the variant, and the options. Okay, let me just have some tea. So I'm just going to switch across to this bit here and copy this code block in, and then I'll show you what it's all about. So come down here, paste that in, and remove the original one. Okay, so as I said, I'm using a Dell XPS 15, and the main thing I wanted to do is change the key for the control key. So by default, what you have is sort of like Alt. You have sort of like Alt Super Control. So first of all, what I'm doing is I'm setting the layout to GB. Then I set the model to 104. And these are the XKB options that you might be familiar with in something like, GNOME or something. When you change you can change your keyboard layout. This is how you do it manually. What's the thing? GNOME tweaks. GNOME tweaks. It allows you to change. It gives you these settings where you can change different things on your keyboard, like swap the control key and stuff. And they all have different names. And the one we want to use here is Control swap left Alt with left Control, and then we're setting caps to none. So what that does is that basically disables caps lock. We then have the rules, which is evdev, and the variant, which is Mac, and that's so that I get the tilde key set next to the shift key. Just finishing off the T there. Okay, so that's the keyboard. So you're going to need to change these options according to your layout. But what I'd recommend is, if you've using a different window manager or whatever, check what the XKB rules are so that you can actually easily copy the options in there. So that's the first thing you need to do, is get your keyboard working. Right. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is actually change the mod key. So the mod key is the sort of action key, as it were. It's so that you can see here I can change sort of windows, and I'm doing that with the super key and 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the workspace is. So what we need to do is change the mod key. So search for mod key, go back to stop, mod key, modkey. Okay, so this is the section. If you want to use the Windows key for modkey, use WL modifier logo. So by default, the mod key is set to Alt. So we need to change that to logo so that it uses the super key. So that's the Windows key on Windows, or the command key on the Mac. That's basically what it's called. I don't know why they call it the logo key. It's the super key. So that's how we can change the modifier. So that's the next important thing we want to do. Okay, and as I said, what you would do after each of these changes, git add dot git commit dash m single quotes mod key. Okay, but I'm just going to do it all at the end because otherwise it get boring for you. So that's the mod key. So next thing we want to do is the terminal and launcher. So terminal. Okay. So by default, this is set up to use the foot terminal and BE menu run. And also the other thing I should mention is the freebsd package for DWL actually includes these as dependencies when you install the package, which is really annoying because I don't want I don't want stuff forced on me. You could create a port, you can edit the port and remove these options, but the package has these by default. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to change these to Alacrity. Okay, Alacrity. Make sure I'm going to copy this across just in case I do a spelling mistake. And Toffee. So what's Toffee? Toffee is like Roffee, and it's can be used in the D menu style. So if I press Super A, what you'll see here is I have basically like a D menu. Okay, and this is just, and the Toffee Run option will only show applications that have desktop entries like Firefox, your graphical applications. You don't want, there's no point in having a launcher for your command line binaries, really, in my opinion. So that's what we're using. Alacrity is our terminal, and Toffee with the -d run option, so that it only shows the desktop entries. Okay, so after we've actually set the terminal and the launcher that we want, because let's face it, that's the most important thing. When you boot into DWL, you want your keyboard working, you want to be able to open a terminal, and you want an application launcher so that you can actually open applications. There's no point in having, oh, I've got nice pink border around stuff if you can't actually use the use the program. So what we'll be doing is we'll also be setting the key bindings for some of this stuff. Next, what we're going to do is set up Firefox and NPV. Let me see where that was. Firefox. Okay. So this is the default rule, and what this basically does is, I think this by default this is set to always open Firefox on the 9th workspace, which I don't want. What I want to do is set this so that it just opens on the workspace I specify. Okay, so I'm just going to put this in and I'll explain. So tag mask. Tags are what you would think of as a virtual desktop. Okay, so that's what a tag is, like a workspace. Okay, so you've also got this is floating option. And let me just check I've actually got the right option in there. I may have not changed my notes. And let me just check. 0 and 1. Okay, yeah. Right, we don't want that floating, so let me just change that. Okay, so change that in here. So is floating is 0 is false and 1 is true. So the next thing that we need to look at here, we've got MPV to set to float, but the next important thing is the monitor. So what I found is with MPV, what you can do is set profiles so that it will automatically open particular kinds of videos on a particular display. So you can have it set up so it will open YouTube videos on your external monitor. But DWL doesn't seem to respect that. What it does is by default, it just opens on this screen, on my laptop screen. Okay. So what I want is when I've always got my external monitor plugged into this machine, and I always want my videos to be opened full screen on the second display. So what we need to do is set MPV monitor option to 0 so that it always opens on the second display. The reason why we do that is because there isn't, as far as I know, a keyboard shortcut to move a window to another monitor. So the problem is if all my videos are opening on this screen, I've got to manually stop the video and then drag it across to the other display, which would be really irritating. So that's one thing I need to look at is there a way to get it to automatically to use the MPV settings so that it will open on a different display, but I haven't found that as yet. So as a workaround for the moment, I'm setting the monitor to 0 so MPV will always open on the second monitor. Okay, so that's some of the static rules that I've set up. I've only set up 2 for the moment. Okay, Emacs and keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so come across to the what section is this? Keys. Okay, keys. This is the keys section where you actually change the keys to do certain things. You know, open your application launcher, open a terminal, move windows up and down, that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is go through and change some of this stuff. So the first one we're going to do is change the menu command. So the menu command is what's launching the application launcher up here. Okay, and by default it's set to super P. Okay, and what that means is you have to use 2 hands to open the menu, right? If you set it to super A, you can do it just with your left hand like that and then press escape. So you can the way I like to do this is your left hand's your action hand and your right hand, you know, is on the H, J, K and L to do stuff. So that's the first thing I would recommend is changing the menu command to A, so that you can just do it with your left hand. Much better. The next thing that we're going to be doing is actually adding in a key for Emacs. So let me just pull this down a tad and see it. Okay. So what we have here is modkey and control. So that's basically the super key and control and return. So when I press the super key, control and return, it's going to execute this shc command, which is defined further up in this file, which basically it'll run a shush command, sh. It will run a shell, and what it's going to do is it's going to run Emacs alternate editor create frame. So whenever I press mod control return, it's going to run Emacs client, and if Emacs isn't running, it's going to start it. Okay, so that's Emacs. What other keys did I have down here? Full screen. So full screen. full screen. Okay, so you can press, function F11 to toggle things full screen. I like to change the, again, this is a bad key binding in my opinion. If you're trying to use it with the left hand, it's a bit awkward. You kind of got to put your thumb on the super key and move your middle finger across to E. So that's why I recommend changing this to S. Okay. So what that means is you can press super S and go full screen like that. Okay. And the nice thing about, I want to point out one thing about the full screen is, as you can see here at the moment, as I'm actually in monocle mode, you can see there is a slight blue border around this. Now, obviously, you don't, if I put this full screen, you can see the border goes away. And that's important if you're watching a video, because you don't want a big blue border around, even if it's only 1 pixel around your video. So that's the next thing, toggling full screen with Super S. I think that I set some stuff a bit further down here. Okay, now this is the really important one. Lib input scroll. Lib input. It's this section down here. Okay, so this is the default lib input config acceleration profile adaptive. When I had and the acceleration speed is 0. When I first started DWL, trying to scroll up and down in Emacs or the terminal was just painfully slow. So slow that it would make using DWL unusable. It was just, it's one of those things that is a make or break. Okay, so what you need to do is change the acceleration profile to flat, and I changed the acceleration speed to 1. Okay, let's just paste that in. Okay, and again, commit the changes as you go along. Now the next one is the movestack patch, and I've only actually got 1 patch installed, and patching is a pain, and typically you end up having to do this manually. Okay, and the let me show you what the movestack patch is. Yeah, okay, I haven't got the keyboard shortcut set up there. Let's just open another Emacs window. I need to set this to tiled mode. This is so that you can press Super, Shift, and J and K and move these up and down the stack. Without this patch, you can't do that, and that's something that's really fundamental, being able to move things up and down. Okay, so the movestack patch. Okay, I clicked on the link there. You can see number 3 up in the menu is now activated, and that's because it's got like a urgent, you have like different messages when things get sent. It's like an urgent thing, so you can see something requires your attention on that tag or workspace. So this is the movestack patch. So if I come across here on DWM, you'll be used to seeing all the patches down here. You can't use these patches, the DWM patches on DWL, obviously. So what you need to do, let me just close some of these tabs. You need to use these patches here on GitHub or on Codeberg. So this is the movestack patch. So I can sort of download it. This will open in the browser, and you can see the patch there. So let me take you across. So that's how you can download the, you can manually download it, or you can just use wget. So let's actually have a look at this patch here. And let me just open it in this mode so it's easier. So this is a patch file, and the minuses are things that have been removed, and plus are things that have been added. So what you can see here is the patch is actually applying things to config.def.h. So it's not actually applying them to the config.h file. So we're going to do this manually. So you can see here what it's doing is adding these two lines here. So it's adding modifier shift J and K, and it's running the movestack function. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this stuff across. Obviously you have to remove the pluses. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to search for the mod keys here. Go with the mod keys. Let's search for that bit. So keys, we need to search for the keys. This is the keys section. And you can see this is where it's adding it after the J and K. I'm going to paste that in and delete the plus signs, otherwise it will not work. Okay, so you can see those being added in. So the next bit is, you can see here, dwl-start. And so this is why I was mentioning the issue with the freebsd package that has a environmental variable. I believe it's called something like dwl_config home, and you can set that to point to the config.h file. But as you can see here, we're modifying dwl.c. So that's the issue, is that if you're using the freebsd package, you wouldn't be able to use the movestack package patch, because you can't specify to use the dwl.c file, I think, unless I'm mistaken. So what do we got here? The next section, right, dwl.c. So let's come out of this one into dwl.c. Let's come to the top. What you can see here is adding this line here below monocle. So let's search for monocle. So that's the line we want. Make a space so we can see it. And again, we're just going to copy this across and delete the plus sign. So we've just added movestack under monocle. Okay. And the next bit's a bit easier. We got this section here. And this is kind of one of the annoying things about the patches, is typically they'll just list the patch. So it's actually, if they just had a plain text version, like saying, okay, this file, you need to change this line, and it'd make it easier to copy and paste stuff in. So this is the final bit we need to add. Okay. And the section that this goes above is, let me just come across to my one. Movestack, it comes under monocle. So what we're going to do is search for monocle again. Monocle. Is that one? Monocle. Let me just check. Yeah, so it goes under monocle. We've got monocle here. And so we're just going to select that and paste it in, but we need to remove all of these pluses. So this is why you want to use a text editor like Emacs that will allow you to do that easily by pressing Control V, and then J going down like so, and X, bang, done. So that's the movestack patch added. Right, we're getting there. We'll come out of that. Right, we've got the movestack patch. So now what we're going to do is actually add all those changes in. So let me just come across here. So before we merge back into the main branch, what you would have been doing is git add dot, then git commit -m and a message for each of these steps. But I'm going to do that now. So where we go? Here we go. Let me just stick this back into monocle mode. Okay, so before you do anything, always make sure which branch you're actually in before you do anything. Okay, because it's easy. it's very easy to do something in the wrong branch. So what we're going to do is git add dot. I'm going to do git commit ddl and dwl touch. Okay, and what you'll see is here 3 files changed, 110 insertions, 1 deletion, create mode. So next step is we need to run git checkout main, and we then run git merge patch. So what I'll do is I'm going to come across here, and what you'll see is this is the patch branch. Okay, and you can see the config.h file there, right? Git checkout main, right? Switch to main. I come back here. You can see it's still there. Let me just check gr. Yeah, it's still showing it there, right? But now what we're going to do is git merge patch. So git merge patch. Okay, so what you'll see here is all of the sort of changes that have been made. Right, so the next step is to actually make DWL. On Linux, all you need to do is run make. You can run a make, a sudo make install, and it will install it into user local bin. On freebsd, what we need to do is run this command: gmake cc equals cc cflags plus equals std equals c11 x Wayland x libs, all this kind of stuff. And this was actually taken from the freebsd dwl port. A guy called Charlie on the freebsd forum pointed this out to me. I'd missed it, but this is the command that is actually used to build the package on FreeBSD. So again, this is just for FreeBSD. On Linux, you just run make. So all being well, there we go. It's built. So DWL, you can see that here. So that's what you do to actually do all the modifications, merge them back, and then make it. And what you can also do is a gmake clean to clean it up. Now, the important thing is, I said you've got to rebuild DWL each time you make the changes. Okay, and you then copy the DWL binary into sudo user local bin. You can do a sudo make install, or you can just copy it manually. However, this is the important thing: you can't copy the DWL binary while DWL is running. You can't copy it over itself while it's running. Yeah. So I couldn't now run sudo cp DWL user local bin. It would give me an error because DWL is currently running. So what you need to do is log out to the command line, right? And on DWL, the way you log out is Alt, Super, and Q, and that will log you out back to a terminal. You generally, this is why you don't want to launch DWL with a desktop entry and a graphical login. What I do is I just have a script that I run that I'll show you in a second. And this is the reason why, is because you need to log out and then copy the, run sudo make install in the DWL Git repository, or manually copy the DWL binary to sudo to user local bin. Okay, so that's another important thing that may sort of have you stumped for a while. So what I'm going to do after we've built that is I have some notes here that I actually showed you in a video about DWM a couple of years ago, about what you need to do to pull down the latest changes. So you know, I need to change this to say DWL instead of DWM. Basically, if I come across here, git remote -v, you see it's called origin. So the origin, so you do a git pull origin master. Okay, or git checkout master and git pull. And this is how you rebase your customizations on top of the master branch, basically. So you can follow along in those steps. And this is also how you can sort of apply a patch to something. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually just show you okay. So now the other thing is actually starting, I should say DWL, start DWL with dbus. So there are some applications, things like MPV, that require dbus on FreeBSD and probably Linux. So what you need to do, in my experience with some of these things, is actually have a script that you would run. Instead of running DWL to start DWL, you'd run this dwl-start script with exec dbus launch -- exit with session dwl. And what you'll see here is this -s option. And this is to launch the DWL bar, which is this thing up here. And I did actually install the DWL bar package from FreeBSD. You can see it's got no clock. You can't click on any of this stuff. So if you want to modify the bar, you need to build that yourself, basically. But since I'm a minimalist, I don't want a clock. I've got a clock in Emacs, I've got a clock in Tmux, so I don't need one. I don't like applets. I never use them. I don't want fancy little things going on here distracting me. Most of the time, I'm actually going to run applications full screen, so I won't even see the bar. So there's no point actually sort of writing it. But this is how you start the bar. DWL-S, DWL-B, and then we're setting a font here, like that. So that's how you start the bar. Okay, and another thing, while I think of it, .config toffee. So this is my Toffee application launcher here. And important thing, you can see the height is set to 32, and that just covers the bar. As you can see there, perfectly covers the bar. And a tip is, what you want to do is actually specify the full path to the font, and that actually increases the speed, basically, because otherwise what it does is it uses Pango, which then looks up the font you're using, and that takes longer. So this is my Toffee settings for the application launcher. And that's the dwl-start. So pushing the branches to GitHub. So this is the kind of next thing that I wanted to cover, is actually how you push this to GitHub. So if I come across here, now this is a bit weird because I had this set up and it was showing the patch, but then it wasn't for some reason that I'd made. So what we got here is my DWL FreeBSD setup, and you can see it's basically the standard thing here. But if we come across to main, you'll see we've actually got two branches here, main and patch. Is it gonna? Don't know why it's not actually showing the patch thing. Let me just check that I've actually got this. Let me. I can't remember if I still got my DWM FreeBSD git remote -v, and what you'll see here is origin. So this is the where I'm pulling from, and then we got GitHub, and this is where I'm pushing to. Git push GitHub master patch. Okay, my key's expired and I don't want to put my password in. Let me just come back to this. So what happens is when you create a new repository, you come up here in GitHub, do new repository. It gives you these instructions to follow if you've got an existing GitHub repository, which we have in our case, which is DWL. So what you do is git remote add, I like to call them GitHub, and then the path to the thing here. And these are the two it gives you, git branch -m main, so I think it names it to main, and then git push -u. And by default, GitHub will be called origin, so that's why we changed it to GitHub, because we've already got an origin. Git push -u GitHub main, and that will just push the main branch up. Maybe I needed to do a git put patch u. Let me see if I can briefly come across and add in my key. See if I just missed something. Bear with me, I'm just typing out my shush key, which obviously I'm not going to show you. So just bear with me a second. Okay, all right. Safe to look now. Let me just see. Git push -u GitHub patch. If that makes any difference. Okay, it should be there. It was just a weird thing is I had it showing up with the config files and everything, but it's not now. And I think, but basically you can see the point I was trying to get across is I've got the two branches pushed up to GitHub. So that if I pull this down, I'll have both the main, the DWL branch and then the branch with my customizations in. Right. Okay. So that's the gist of getting DWL set up, and some specific things to freebsd. You can see here we've got all our tags, our workspaces here. The other thing is, if I come across here, you see I wasn't kidding about not writing stuff. I don't even have a desktop wallpaper set. And the reason for that is because, quite simply, I'm always going to have a window open on my display, whether it's the laptop or the external monitor. So I'm not going to see the desktop apart from a split second when I'm closing a window or something. So really, do I want an extra process running just to show a wallpaper that I'm not going to see apart from a second or two a day? So I haven't covered that. There are things, I think Sway, BG, MPV image. There's some other things that you can actually use to set the background. But yeah, that's DWL for the Wayland version of DWM. Okay, yeah, and where did it have the patches? So I can't remember. It's a bit confusing there because there's two repositories. I think some of the patches are, check out the patches on our wiki. Okay, so there are patches. The layout is different. So if I come across the DW, so you may be for using the GitHub one as opposed to viewing it on Codeberg, because it's not. Yeah, well, it should be the patches section. Where's the patches? Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So I think there's the wiki here. Where's the wiki on? Oh, yeah, wiki. And and then you come across to the patches. So it's probably easier to use the GitHub one, but I just wanted to let you know that there are actually 2 repositories, and some of the issues here, there were some issues on the Codeberg one that weren't here. So if you're searching for stuff, you might have to search in 2 places. But this is basically a list of all the patches that you can use. And here are the compatible status bar, some bar, DWL bar. So that's the one I'm using, I think. Waybar, so you can use Waybar as well, apparently, which is the thing that a lot of people use with, what's that fancy window manager, with all the fancy animations. What the name of it now? The one everyone uses with, that's going to bug me now. I'm going to have to look at that. Sorry, I'm just going to have to, because otherwise that's one of those things that's going to tiling Hyperland. That's the one, Hyperland. So why did I was using Wayland before. I was using Wayfire as my window manager before, but I was getting a lot of pops and clicks with OBS Studio. So there was a bug with the WL roots. It's called WL robs, is the thing you need to install so that OBS can catch the WL roots windows on Wayland. And there seemed to be a bug with Wayfire that was causing all this popping and stuff. So I was searching around for other window managers, thought about going back to Xmonad on FreeBSD, but you can't install Xmonad at the moment on FreeBSD. Haskell have stopped support for FreeBSD, so I couldn't use that. So I thought about going back to DWM, but then I thought might as well try DWL. And it's been great. I said I've got a very simple setup. I need to look into, there's a couple of things that I need to look into. Okay, so volume keys, your media keys, so that you can, raise and lower the volume. I found some links on Reddit and some gists. So that's one thing I need to sort out. Now, there are some features that I would like to enable that I don't know if are possible, that I was used to in Wayfire and also in Xmonad that I'd really like in DWL. That's 2 main things that I'd like is cursor warping. And what that is being able to have a keyboard shortcut that will warp, move your cursor from one monitor to the next. So rather than having to manually move your cursor across to the next screen and back, you can have a keyboard shortcut that will basically just move your cursor between the monitors. And the reason that's useful is because if you want to open an application on your second display, you've got to switch to the other display and then run your application launcher so that it opens on that display. And that brings me on to the second thing that I'd like to set up, or feature that I'd like to have, and that is the ability to move a window from one monitor to the other. I haven't looked into the patches. Maybe I'm just missing patches that do this, have this functionality. But being able to, move this window to the other monitor and back again is something that's really helpful and useful. So that's another feature that I'd sort of quite like. And the third thing is MPV. So what you can do with MPV is actually have profiles that will apply conditionally to things like YouTube URLs or whatever, and you can set it so that they will always open full screen on your main display, but other URLs would just open on your laptop. But as I said, by default, what happens on DWL is the window will actually open on the monitor you've got. It won't respect these rules and open on an external monitor. So that's another feature that I'd actually quite like to actually have set up. So I'll put links to all this under the video, but basically, quick overview of the steps again. You need to install the packages. So you need to install the dependencies which are listed on the DWL site. So libinput, Wayland, WL roots, XKB common, Wayland protocols, and PKG config. Remember, on FreeBSD, there are some specific steps like enabling seated in your rc.conf. And on FreeBSD, these are the packages that I needed to install. And this is basically taken from the DWL site here, but also the list of packages on the FreeBSD. It's FreshPorts. It's got a list of dependencies for the package. So the packages that I'm installing are a combination of those on FreeBSD, evdev proto, Wayland protocols, gmake pkg config, libxcb, libinput, Wayland, wroots, libxkb common, xcb util wm. Right. So you need to install the dependencies and the packages. You clone DWL either from GitHub or Codeberg. I just use Codeberg because that's where they said the project had migrated to. You create the Git branch. So the first time, what you do is you run git branch -b patch. After you run that the first time, you can just run git checkout main or git checkout patch to switch between the branches. And to view the branch you're currently on, you just run git branch. Right. Let me go back to the desktop. DWL git branch or main git was it git checkout? Yeah, git checkout. Git checkout patch. Switch to branch patch. Checkout main. Now on main. Okay. You then need to copy the def.h, config.def.h to config.h. And again, you'd make commits after each of these changes. On FreeBSD, we run this little command to edit the make file. We got a keyboard set up, so make sure you go into the XKB rules names in the config.h and set the layout, the model, the options, the rules, and the variant. Change the mod key. So remember, you need to change the mod key to WL modifier logo, so you can use a super key. Set your terminal launcher. So the term command, alacrity, menu command, tofi run. Remember, Firefox, we needed to change this tag mask thing to 0 because by default it's set to open Firefox on the 9th tag, on the 9th workspace. And we also set MPV monitor to 0 to open videos on the second display all the time. We set the Emacs keyboard shortcuts. So the keyboard shortcuts we set here were mod A to run the menu command instead of mod P, so that you can do it with one hand. We created a command to launch Emacs, and we also did the full screen. Full screen, was it in this section here? Full screen, yeah. So we set the full screen to Super S, like that, rather than E, because what's the point in creating keyboard shortcuts where you've got to mangle your hand to get the keys? So those were some of the keyboard shortcuts we set. important thing again, lib input scroll. One thing you remember lib input scroll. That's the thing that's going to drive you absolutely bonkers unless you change it. You'll open up a terminal or your text editor and you'll try to scroll and it will be unbearable. It won't be usable basically. So change the acceleration profile from adaptive to flat and the acceleration speed to 1, and still not quite as fast as some other things I've used, but it's much more bearable. Then we had the movestack patch, so we can move the windows up and down the stack. If you don't have this patch, it's going to get really annoying because you'll open lots of windows and you won't be able to move them around. So that's the one patch that I install, but you can have a look at other patches that you might want to use. And then we merged the changes into the master branch. We did our git commit period, git commit -m, and then the message. Then basically you just run git checkout main, git merge patch, and it will merge it in. And then on Linux you would just run make sudo make install, but on freebsd we're going to use this gmake command here, and I've actually put the link there. So yeah, so this was the post I made on the FreeBSD forum about trying to build DWL, and it failed with failed with C99 illegal option -p. Okay, and where was he? Here we go. There's the man Charlie, and he was saying I can build it by mimicking ports, but then I think you should use ports. And I said the reason why we can't use the port is because it only allows you to specify the config.h file for customizations, not any other file, as far as I'm aware. So this was the 2 lines that I think are actually he's taken from the ports package build or something. So we've got the sed command to change the make file and the gmake command here. So shout out Charlie, that's absolutely brilliant. Saved my day because I had to switch to another window manager because Wayfire was just crackling and popping, as you can hear in some of the previous videos, recent videos I did. So hopefully this has got everything set up. So sorry, that was a little bit of a diversion, but that's how we make DWL. This is how you update DWL and rebase your customizations. How you can apply a diff patch, and also pushing the branch up to GitHub. And let me just see if it will let me clone that. So what I'm going to do is come across here and git clone, and it should hopefully have all my changes in. So let's come across to the desktop, dwl-freebsd, and you can see that should be on the branch. So if I do git branch, oh duh, yeah, it would help if I was in the flipping thing. I mean, okay, main. So that's only pulled down the main branch. So can I do git full GitHub? I think it's going to be called origin patch. Okay. Yeah. A bit baffled as why too. It's not sort of showing up. That's one thing I haven't quite figured out with GitHub. Why it's not actually showing my stuff, but I've got it locally working, so that's the main thing. But I kind of wanted to show you that kind of thing where it'll actually show you the branches, but I swear I had it come up before and now it's not, as soon as I do the demo, of course. But that's DWL. That's how we get it all set up. You know, you're free to rices to your heart's content, but the main thing I wanted to focus on was the functionality, because there's no point in just doing you a video showing, oh yeah, this is how you can set a color here and put a block there, and you want to know how you can set up your keyboard. You want to have, you know, have important things addressed, like the scroll speed, how you open stuff on different monitors, you know, that kind of stuff. But you can have you know, there are some things you'll be able to perhaps, some tips you may be able to transfer across from a DWM config to DWL, but you're going to have to be sort of a bit careful about that. You know, it's a lot of this stuff is, you know, there'll be some random bit of C code, you know, floating about on the internet. So it's like DWL link. So here's like a tip from Reddit. So this is a sort of Reddit post. Okay, yeah. So this is basically about DWM, but a lot of this is, you know, the sort of C code, and it's defining a command to do something. So in theory, some of this stuff should be, you know, you should be able to port it across. So there was one thing, and then there was a gist here that I came across. Yeah, so this was DWM, and this is for the media keys. So what you need to do is actually include the xf86 key sys.h in the sort of config, and then it's got all these settings for different kinds of audio, like pulse audio or ulcer, you know, that sort of thing. So there's also bits of code floating about for keyboard backlight and that sort of stuff. But yeah, you're going to need to be careful, you know, about randomly copying bits of code. You know, you might have to do a bit of reading up on C and that sort of thing. But yeah, DWL, I've missed tiling window managed for the past couple of years. And that's just because I've got a Dell XPS 15 with an NVIDIA graphics card, and the only thing I could actually run Wayland on when I was using Linux was GNOME, which is bad. It's really bad. Yeah, I saw a post someone saying, yeah, it's like someone put iOS on my computer, and it is really like that. And it's basically the problem with desktop environments like GNOME is that basically it's them telling you what your workflow is and how things should be set up. It's like you wouldn't let someone come in and rearrange everything on your desk, move your monitor about and your mouse, would you? And then expect you to use it. It's the same sort of thing. So that's why actually having a window manager that you can actually configure yourself will allow you to, you know, have your own workflow and do things your own way, instead of someone telling you how you're supposed to, you know, use your computer, basically. So yeah, DWL, absolutely worth it. As I said, the reason why I chose it was because I was having difficulty with Wayfire. You can't really run GNOME Wayland or KDE on FreeBSD, and I don't like either of them. And the other issues, there are things like Sway or in that one I was mentioning before, Hyperland, but they have issues with NVIDIA graphics cards. And also, as I said, I was looking at Xmonad. I was even looking at going back to Xmonad to fix the issues I was having with audio and OBS Studio. But as I said, Xmonad on FreeBSD is basically dead because Haskell have dropped support for FreeBSD, and I don't know if there's anything going to be done about it. So you can't use Cabal or Stack to install Xmonad on FreeBSD. But that's an overview of getting DWL set up. You know, you can go through and read the documentation, have a look at some videos. If you come across to YouTube and do a search for DWL, okay, yeah, there's a couple of videos, and this one doesn't really kind of show anything, just a guy talking about it. There's this one here about Void Linux, and it's just kind of showing you some keyboard shortcuts and stuff. It is, to be fair, it is showing you how to sort of build it on Void Linux, but it doesn't really go into any depth really about some of the settings that you need to change. And there's a system crafters thing here, but to be honest, a lot of these videos don't actually tell you anything. They don't explain, why you need to make a separate Git branch, as I described. Some of the sort of settings that you actually need to go through. The problem with a lot of this stuff on DWM or DWL is it will be people writing stuff. Here's my wallpaper, here's something, with this color and some icons and that kind of stuff. But that's not actually going to help you use your computer any better, to be honest, is it? You want to get the functionality. It's functionality over style, really, basically. And anyway, that's my approach. But yeah, it's really nice. You've got your multiple. The advantages are you've got multiple tags, so you've got all your different workspaces up here. So you can switch stuff easily. You've got different tiling modes. You've only got a couple by default, like floating, tiling, or monocle, which is like a single view. But you can add more layouts if you want. But to be perfectly honest, you kind of, the amount of times that you're going to use them, you probably won't. Like all these fancy layouts going into spirals and all that kind of stuff. I had them all set up with X mode, and you just never use them really. You just, to be honest, you're really gonna most of the time you're gonna have either a window like this or probably full screen is what you're gonna want. And occasionally you will actually tile a window. So if I just put this back to tile, you'll see here. This is why tiling is actually useful. Because what I've got here is I've got jacked running in the other tmux tab, and then I've got qjacked running here. And I was having issues with Wavefire whenever I was, and the Wavefire window manager or desktop, whenever I was grabbing a title bar to move it around, it would crash, which was really irritating. And I was getting all this weird flickering in Chrome and Firefox. Worked okay for about a month, and then I did an update, and God's law, it broke. So that's why I switched to DWL and said I use tmux, and I'll always use separate panes. And if I'm using Emacs, I'll have separate tabs. So I don't have too much use for tiling apart from the odd occasion. But what I basically want from my window manager is separate workspaces, and I want separate workspaces per monitor. So basically, when I change to a separate workspace here, it's not changing the workspace on my main monitor, because that would be really annoying if you're watching a video. So that's DWL. I'll put links to all this under the video. Hope that helps you get it set up, and actually point out a few things that perhaps other people don't mention, and so hopefully that will help you keep your customizations in a separate Git branch. I don't know why GitHub isn't actually showing my branch with all the changes. It was before, so on the main branch there's main. So we should have a config.h in our the patch version, but if I say like switch to here, it's kind of still not showing that, and I'm not entirely sure why. So if anyone's got any ideas on that, leave a comment. But I'll put links to all this documentation, this file that I've actually been going through, and the DWL site, and that sort of thing. So that's all for now, and hope that helps.